네, 오늘은 테크피드 채널에 특별한 게스트 한 분을 초청을 해봤습니다. 이제 해외 팔란티어 인베스터 커뮤니티에서는 좀 꽤나 유명하신 에밋 인베스팅님의 에밋님을 초대를 해봤는데요. 이제 에밋님 같은 경우에는 최근에 그 AIPcon도 직접 가시고 하셔서 CEO 알렉스카프도 직접 만나보시고 하셨어요. 그래서 좀 팔란티어의 좀 신선한 관점을 제공해 주실 수 있을 것 같아서 이렇게 모시게 되었습니다. All right, everyone. We have a very, very special guest today. So, Emmett, thanks again for coming up on my show. So, this is actually my first ever TechFeed podcast here. So, it's really an honor to have you here. So, please give an introduction for yourself for my subscribers, please.
Yeah, my name is Amit. I am also a YouTuber. I am in the United States, and I primarily make content about Palantir on YouTube. I also do a market open and market close show. So we kind of stream when the market opens in the morning, and then stream when the market opens or closes in the afternoon. And I post on Twitter as well about stocks, Palantir, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
All right, great. So yeah, we have a few questions for you today. I think the first one was speaking an ontology for Palantir. So this could be like a main entry question for those who are interested in investing in Palantir, because ontology could arguably be the core technology that runs this company. So the main question for me is, what is ontology, first of all, and do you think this is something that other competitors can not easily copy? So in other words, could this work as a Palantir's moat?
Yeah, if you're going to invest in Palantir, I think it's very important to understand the concept of ontology. It's a philosophical word, actually, and what it means is a state of being. And I actually got interested in Palantir because of this word in 2021 when I went on their website and they said, we are creating an ontology of your data. It's essentially creating the state of being of your data. So when you think of what Palantir's core value proposition is to a business, it's taking the internal data of the business and making it actionable, making it useful, allowing people to drive decisions from that data to actually change the business, increase revenue, increase operating margins, and decrease costs. And so in order to build a understanding of your business that is not just a dashboard, that is just not like a simple view of your analytics, but to actually drive decision making, you need to have an ontology. At its core, an ontology is what connects the business data that you have, and it creates a semantic representation of that data. What does semantic means? It means how is that data represented in a way that allows me to understand what I need to do with this data. If I'm a car manufacturer and I have data that is structured, unstructured, data from different vendors, data from different weather patterns, different supply chains that I'm looking at, all of these different pieces of data, if I could integrate them in a sophisticated and meaningful way into the ontology or the state of being of my organization, I can then make decisions from that data. And so I think Palantir has shown pretty successfully, they're going to do, about $2.7 billion of revenue this year, that thing that they created to be able to make enterprise data management secure and protected and actually govern in the right way, and then it can drive insights for the business, that is worth a lot of money. They have thousands of patents on it, and I do believe that ultimately is their moat.
Yes, so they have, I believe, about like 4,000 patents registered on Google Patents, and a lot of them are about ontology. And I think on top of the technical moat, I think Palantir is arguably in the process of building their brand. What I mean by that is they have, the most experience with the governments and the security as well. They have IL6 security clearance. So, let's say you're the leader of a huge company or even a country. So would you be willing to, take a risk when it comes to the fate of your nation or your organization? So like the bigger your organization gets, you would not want to go to some kind of an AI startup, but try to go for companies that has the most experience, which I think could be Palantir. And I think they're the most trusted companies when it comes to AI data analysis. Like especially bigger your organizations get, like you don't want to take too much of a risk, but just go with the one that were validated for a very long time.
Yeah, and the core thing about our ontology is I had dinner with one of the heads of Palantir's public health 2 weeks ago, and he told me the reason the ontology is so important is because other data companies, Snowflake, Databricks, Datadog, etc., they aren't thinking of their clients as customers that they want to have transformative results with. to have a transformative relationship with a client, a BP, an Airbus, a Tampa General, some of the clients that really double down on their work with Palantir, you have to build an ontology, because that ontology will be transparent. That ontology potentially might make mistakes. That ontology will hold you accountable. And as a result, they will actually call you up and ask you to help work with them. Most software companies just want to sell a piece of software and then move on with their life to sell the next piece of software. Palantir actually wants to have partnerships with their customers that are worth a lot more money and that are actually transformative, so that those contracts continue to renew. And an ontology forces that accountability, which ultimately builds their brand, as you're saying right now.
I see. So it's very dynamic, like compared to, Snowflakes and Databricks. I see. I think that was a very nice. All right. So my next question is when was like your first time? I think you kind of answered it on the first question, but when was like the first time you were like, okay, Palantir's the one. This is it. I'm going to be investing in this company.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. In 2021, I saw Cathie Wood investing in it, and that's when it piqued my interest. And I was like, oh, she's buying some shares. It's interesting. But really, that was like April, November, 5 months later, I actually like just went on the website and I started reading through this stuff. And I was just like, this is just so interesting. There's so many, unique dynamics going on here. And then I saw Alex Karp, and obviously when you see Alex Karp, you start to realize this is a different type of company. And I just felt like it was really cool. And that was my elementary form of analysis. That's when I started getting into it. And then the stock collapsed and you're sitting on some decent losses. You really have to force yourself to figure out, how cool is this? Do I want to keep holding it? And the deeper I got into it, although the stock kept falling, the company just kept getting cooler to me. And ever since then, I've been hooked on.
I see. For me, if I were to share my own experience, so I served as an interpreter officer in the military for 3 years, and I had this opportunity to participate in this entity called Joint Targeting Coordination Board. So what I do there was to do translation for the target selection. So there is one general officer that will convene the meeting, and all the working level officers from each command will participate and nominate their own targets with their own priorities. And the general will have to decide which targets to strike. And I just know that how complex the targeting process goes in the military setting. But when I read this article from Forbes or Time, maybe, they said that Palantir was able to reduce the targeting cycle from 6 hours to mere few minutes.
Yeah.
And that was something that I could personally relate to. And that was when I was like, okay, this is truly revolutionary. Because targeting, if you think about it, it's really complex. Like you have to anticipate the enemy movement. You have to select the targets. The priorities always changes. And some targets even don't mean anything if it's past certain times. Though those are called time-sensitive targets. So it's really dynamic. And arguably, it's like the most complex task to deal with in the military. And when I heard that Palantir was able to reduce that progress, that was like when I was, okay, this could be something, and this could, potentially change daily lives in the commercial sector as well.
So you saw a use case for the military application of it that you had experience with. Even if you didn't use their software, you knew that if you did have their software, that could have helped you tremendously, essentially.
Yes. So I think as Palantir shows more use cases, and as people realize how great this software could become, in order to realize that, you kind of have to know the, all the ecosystem and how the industry works. Right. So as more use cases come out, I think more people like me are going to be, started considering investing in Palantir and taking it seriously.
I love it. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we're basically investing in Palantir to make fortune out of it. So one of the most important question might be, what is your price target for Palantir, and when do you think the stock is going to hit that number?
A price target is interesting. I think there's so many different ways you can conceptualize it. There are some days where I'm like, oh, this thing's going to $1 trillion, which would make it like a $500 stock. More realistically, I think it's going to take a path of like Salesforce, which right now is like $250, and the stock market cap is like 250 billion as well. If I want to be a little aggressive here, I do think Palantir can get to $250. I don't know when that's going to happen. I would say it takes at least a decade to get there. And the reason I'm saying that is because although it is a B2B enterprise software company, the tailwind of AI is very real. I think Palantir is one of the only products in the market that actually is unlocking the potential for enterprises with AI. So if we think of AI as a multi-trillion-dollar industry and the money is going to go from hardware infrastructure build out, which is what NVIDIA, AMD, all the semis are doing, into software applications that utilize AI, I really just don't think there's that many software companies that are actually navigating the challenges of AI and operationalizing it the way that Palantir is doing. If you consider that, and then consider the thing that I think people don't talk about enough, which you already mentioned, is the government business. Very sticky, CAGRing at about 16% right now, reaccelerated, going to do about 1.4 billion just off government revenue. I think NATO countries are going to have no choice. We're seeing this in Germany right now, but to buy Palantir software. I think that's a $100 billion market eventually. And if Palantir even captures 10 billion of revenue just from the government, and they do another 10 billion in commercial, you're talking about $20 billion in revenue. So I think $250, which would be a $500 billion market cap, is not crazy to me. I think that would take some time. I also think just like Oracle right now is 300 billion, Salesforce 250 billion. Over the next decade, a $300 billion company is going to seem normal. You know, a $1 trillion company is going to seem normal. We already have like 4 or 5 of them. So I do think in the next decade, the idea that Palantir gets to 400 or 500 billion, which would be basically a 10x from here, is not insane. The only thing that's going to stop them is their growth rate right now is not as amazing as it needs to be. It's only at 21%. That needs to get closer to 25, 30%. And if that happens, then I think the street's going to recognize what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I shared a similar view. So recently, NVIDIA hit number 1 when it comes to market capitalization briefly for one day. And I think that signals something. Either it's a AI bubble market or we're seeing something starting. And I'm a believer of the latter. So a lot of people compare NVIDIA to the people that used to sell pickaxes and jeans for the gold miners. Now the capital is going to flow to the people that actually mine gold with those pickaxes and jeans. One of my philosophy when it comes to investing is I would like to invest in companies that try to disrupt a market that has no limit. Yeah. For example, Tesla is the one. Tesla recently, showed their plans to disrupt the labor market, but is there a limit to labor? Likewise, for Palantir, they're providing solutions. And for solutions to exist, there must be problems. And the question is there a limit to problems? I think it's going to be quasi-infinite. Like you said, I think it's going to take some time for market to realize, for this to really facilitate and show up on their, balance sheet. But I think eventually, if they go along this track for a long time, I think we will have a very fruitful conclusion with this Palantir investing.
I agree. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they are going to be the beneficiaries of AI. They're going to operationalize AI throughout every client that they get. The types of deals they're getting, I mean, they got a $480 million contract a couple weeks ago. They got the first prime contract ever. So in the United States, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, these guys get typical prime hardware contracts. Palantir is a software company that got a $189 million Titan contract, which was supposed to go to Raytheon. They beat Raytheon, which is a very big old legacy defense company. I just think they're a different company. People can stress out about the valuations, and yes, at some points it can technically be overvalued, and there's better entry points to buy the stock. But if you are holding this for the next 10 years, the amount of innovation, research, and diligence that this company is doing, I mean, they have not done an acquisition in 8 years because they have the smartest people in the world that want to work there. So it's just one of those things where it's a different company. And if you're going to take a bet on a risky company, because it is a little riskier than Google and Apple, etc., I don't know any other better company than something like Palantir.
Yeah, I agree. So, this is going to be really exciting decade to come.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's going to be a fun decade.
Yeah. So speaking of a huge deal, we have another news recently, right? From the space industry. So from what I understand, so NASA decided to decommission their ISS, and SpaceX is bringing that back to Earth. We're going to have another commercial ISS built up. And that could be what were the two companies again? It was either Voyager and
Voyager and Starlab.
oh right, Voyager and Starlab. And Palantir is having a strategic partnership with Voyager.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that means that Palantir is now expanding to another domain. So they used to work with governments, military, and they have now shown us that they're expanding to medical field, finances, and now they're even going to space. Since they're like the pioneer data analysis company for space industry, they're going to be able to flourish in the space industry from now on because they're the ones that have the real experience and the real data that could work with the real situation. So a lot of future companies that work in the space industry will definitely think of Palantir from now on.
Yeah, I think the commercial space industry is becoming massive. SpaceX just got an $843 million contract from NASA. We're seeing companies like Voyager and Starlab. Starlab is building a commercial space station. There's going to be, I would argue, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of money to be captured in space, whether it's satellites, whether it's deploying those satellites, Starlink, obviously a very fast growing part of SpaceX, cleaning up space debris. So all of that's going to require data. All of that's going to require an analytical framework. A lot of that is going to require AI to be able to navigate the terrain that is space. And so one of the reasons I invested in Palantir 3 years ago was because I was like, I think their software can be used in every single vertical on the planet. And that was the like elementary thesis I had back in 2021. And as you know, the time has passed, it's like supply chain, defense, energy, healthcare, now space. They had a deal with Satellogic a couple years ago, which is a very important space company. They had a deal with Black Sky. They invested in them through a SPAC investment. They've had their Meta Constellation product, which is just using geospatial intelligence. I mean, there's so many different ways where they can be a big player in space. The question's just now, you know, what they're going to do to capitalize on the opportunity. But I think space is the next domain. And the government, I mean, you know, when Donald Trump was president of the United States 4 years ago, he created a space force. Now, we haven't had a lot of updates on that since he lost the presidency, and you know, the administration has not really cared much about the Space Force, but the Space Force is a thing, and if they're going to be doing more deals, I think Palantir is going to benefit from that as well.
Right. So yeah, speaking of space forces, that was the one of the main issues when I was serving in the military. Apparently, Donald he was trying to set up a new space force, but it kind of, you know, got into halt. But if he, yeah, like you said, if he wins the election, that could come back in life. Yeah. All right. So last question of the day, and this is my most anticipated question of the day. Please tell us about your meeting with Alex Karp. Like, what did you learn? How has your thoughts toward Palantir changed? How is he like?
So I got to meet Alex Karp. First of all, shout out to Iliano. Iliano is one of the strategic affairs people at Palantir, and he invited me to an event in DC a couple months ago. That's where I first got to meet Alex Karp. It was kind of funny. He was on a panel. I was sitting front row, and he gets on the panel, and they're waiting like 2 minutes before the panel starts, and he finds me in the crowd, and he starts waving at me. Wow. I'm like, hello. And so he obviously recognized
knew you already.
Me.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, apparently the Palantir people there send him a lot of like the videos and the tweets and the stuff, and he consumes that stuff, you know, whenever he has time. And so as soon as his panel is done, he walks straight up to me. He ignores everybody who's trying to get his attention. He shakes my hand, and he just says, "Thank you for everything you do. I really, really appreciate you." And I said, I appreciate you as well for building a really cool company. And that was the day after earnings. And so the stock fell like 20%. And he was like, you know what? Regardless of what the stock's doing, we crushed it. And I was like, yep, you guys did.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Karp's very eccentric. He's very eclectic in his words. He's very, you know, he's like constantly moving. He's constantly thinking. He's exactly how he is on stage. He is no different than when we see him on stage. Super nice, super funny, super charming. He came up to us. I met him again at AIPCon when I went in California for the second time, and he started telling a story about how he started investing his grandfather's money. When his grandfather passed away, he left him a little bit of money, and he started investing. And the way he would assess if a company was good or not is he would talk to the employees, and if the employees said good things about the CEO, then he would invest in the company. So he was telling us a story because I was telling him about, you know, how I'm so impressed about the culture of Palantir, and so he was just talking about what it means to, you know, build a real culture. And he told me, you know, he thinks the company can become one of the biggest companies in the world without thousands and thousands of employees, simply because LLMs are operationalizing the rise of ontologies, or ontologies will be operationalized by the rise of LLMs. Yeah. And so he thinks the AI revolution really is Palantir's moment to capture if they get the world to understand the concept of an ontology. So he's a super fun guy, super nice guy, and it was cool meeting him because he's just one of those people where his aura, when you're next to him, you're just like, wow, this is like this is a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes this company, and that's all he cares about doing.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, this is something that nobody can hear about unless you really meet the guy. And I was really wondering like what your experience with meeting with Alex Karp was. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So yeah, I mean, this has been a great insight and perspective from you. Thanks once again.
What is your view on the Korean Palantir community? Is there a large adoption of people that care about Palantir?
Yes, there are a lot of people that are in. Palantir is one of the most popular stock along with Tesla. There are a lot of YouTubers like me in the Korean YouTuber community that covers Palantir as well. So they're getting a lot of interest in the companies. Yes.
All right. I love it. Thank you for having me on, man. This was awesome.
Yeah. All right. So this was Amit Investing, everybody. So I'll leave the channel link in the description. So for those who are interested, please check out his channel. Like he's the one to go with when it comes to Palantir investing, and he met Alex Karp himself. So yeah, we'll maybe do another one when Palantir hits $100.
I love it. Yes, we will.
All right.